Hi, everybody. It's Lev Gonick from ASU here for another episode of Voice of Innovation. I am very pleased today to bring on board a friend and colleague of mine, Bridget Burns, the CEO of the University Innovation Alliance. Welcome, Bridget.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. I love this. I'm excited about your show.
Voices of Innovation invites big thinkers with bold ideas who are here at the ASU GSV Summit to talk about the influence of technology in today's society and our future of education. I'm your host, Lev Gonick from Arizona State University. Let's jump in.
The University Innovation Alliance, folks may have heard of it, but why don't you just sort of level set what the mission is, what the objective of the UIA is?
So higher ed is a super competitive landscape. Institutions believe they compete with each other on everything, right? It's not just athletics, research, everything. Funding, that as a result, highly competitive, good ideas can get treated like a trade secret. And so 12 years ago, a group of college presidents got together in a room and decided to unite around a shared sense of urgency that we were really in trouble as a country when it comes to economic competitiveness because we just weren't doing a good enough job when it came to producing college graduates. And we were doing a particularly bad job with low-income graduates. And that's really our entry point because historically, at the time, things are all access and four-year graduation rates. And this group wanted to figure out, could we actually figure out how to scale ideas from campus to campus that help a low-income person graduate, which at the time was very unique. And over time, not only we proved that we could do that by setting big public goals and actually more than doubling those goals, 51% more low-income graduates. We originally were hoping to hit 68,000 more graduates, and we hit 164,000. So anyway, this actually has worked in terms of
the power of working together.
Yeah, it's we think it's a waste of time, energy, and money to go it alone. And so they banded together to actually accomplish some big things. And along the way, we built a valuable network that knows how to scale ideas. And we've now gone beyond where UIA 1.0 was degrees and graduates. 2.0 is post-college mobility and the prosperity of our states. But I would also say it's like innovation in general needed a place to go viral. And this is that kind of national lab environment that makes that possible.
So Bridget, one of the things that's impressive about the UIA, and especially the way you have led the UIA, is that you have at least two, if not three, major audiences. You've got the presidents agreeing, and you have a governance model to support the president's engagement. But when you engage in the work of the UIA, it's actually the doers who are working with you, rolling up their sleeves in workshop activities. And then, and especially now, I see that you've also opened the aperture for, as you were just saying, about states' engagements on what prosperity and opportunity look like, state by state, and then weaving this network together.
And AI, too.
So, we're going to get to AI in a moment, but talk about whether that's been by design or in part in response to essentially the signals that you're picking up.
I mean, everything. So first off, we run this it's always been a startup. It still operates like a startup because the work changes all the time in terms of the topics they want to work on and, presidential turnover and transition and and each institution's different and how do they actually get stuff done? I spent a year just studying and observing their behavior and trying to figure out who's the person that we coordinate, right? And that changes over time, depending, but generally each college, they pick a few people that you can see they clearly have the confidence of the leadership to execute and get stuff done. You're one of those people, right? And what I observed is those people have massive plates. They're it's like a giant pile of stuff on their desk, right? And so we bring those people together, but we also launched something called the University Innovation Alliance Fellows Program, which actually was emulating an idea we saw at ASU called the University Initiatives Fellows Program, which was all of a sudden give you a chief of staff underneath who offloads your plate. So we coordinate, basically, everything we do, we learn something from and just keep kind of adding to it to make it so that innovation can happen, it's sustainable, it moves fast. And so the way I work is there are communities of practice at multiple layers, like the presidents are one, now the provosts want to be one, And then there's the liaison, is what we call it, which is the principal investigator of the
Right.
right.
It's a quant in art.
Yeah. And at the end, and those people change. I would say I define them as they know how to get stuff done. They have the confidence of the president.
Right.
They're easy to work with, and they actually care about this work. Right. That's it. I don't care where they sit. Those are the characteristics. Right. But we learned that you have to have two of them because they turn over.
Right.
And now they get poached to become college presidents.
Right.
Good problem to have. And then we also coordinate the folks underneath them, the fellows. So it's, if you could imagine, like, it's these coordinating circles. And at the end of the day, what I run is a high trust network. And so getting those communities to trust each other and be able to talk warts and all about failure, don't do this, oh my God, I wish I'd known this. Right. You don't have enough spaces like that in higher ed. And then we can build really important projects and actually do the work together.
So Bridget, I'm just reflecting in real time here that building out an innovation network at scale, a national scale, is not obviously not for the faint of heart. And when you take, and the piece I'm reflecting on right now, is that with as much change as happens inside higher education, with people at all of the three levels that you've outlined, the orchestration of the work from, again, you and your mighty staff.
Of 6 people.
Of total 6 people. So what are some of the lessons that you can reflect on in terms of the sustainability of innovation at scale in an ever-changing landscape, with not only the dynamics within the university, but the landscape outside of the university, whether it's economic downturns, technology disruption, changes in administrations that make the logic of what universities can and can't do? What are some of those lessons learned about keeping the network, the trust network that you spoke of, moving together?
So it's very basic innovation learning, right, from other places. I focus on learning from other spaces. When I first started this, I tried to look for inspiration, and I couldn't find it in higher ed. There's lots of collaborative stuff, but I actually looked at things like Weight Watchers, which is a very, not anymore, but it used to be this very light touch model that you could that helped people work together on something that was hard. Which is, losing weight was hard for everyone, and it became, so some of the structure there, looking at innovation in healthcare systems, all these other spaces, there are little models. And I would say, number one, as always, empathy is the first step of design.
Right.
So everything I do, I need to constantly be watching and learning from them and shifting and adapting. And it's also that you have to set them up to be successful. They need trust, they need community, they need to actually talk about stuff they can't talk about in other ways. That won't naturally happen. So what I do is, my job is to never get too close to any one institution. The only thing I really have to offer is my objectivity, that I can stand in the center and I can see how you share about the innovations on your campus. I listen for the message, and I also have to know what problems the other campuses have, because I'm trying to match make. Okay, you should talk to Lev. He actually has got a thing on this. And I find that while you might be good at talking about your idea, it's actually the person who kind of just knows enough to be dangerous that's actually really helpful, because I don't use your language. I use language they understand. So a lot of the time I'm trying to understand enough about what's going on that I can talk about it when someone has that problem, and then try and connect you to.
So, Bridget, is that a leadership skill that you had before you started this journey, or is that a leadership skill that has evolved with some more innate instincts that you have about how to actually bring people together? What you've just shared there, I was thinking to myself, like, is this servant leadership that Bridget is talking about? But it's not. You're very actively involved.
It's like shuttle diplomacy.
It's great. I love it. Say more about that.
Prior to this, I was a chief of staff for a university system where I had 7 presidents, and I had to, do the job you want to do, not the job you're given. So I just stepped up and took on advocacy to the legislature and figured out how to do that for them. And I learned that, it's like trying to chase them that's a lot. So you have to actually be the glue in between them. They're busy people. They don't have time to have the conversation that they need to have. But if you want to coalesce people and get them to come together, you got to know what they're struggling with. The only things people will actually work together on are shared problems and big goals they can only accomplish together. And they don't know that most of their problems are shared.
Right.
So my job is to help them feel like they're not alone.
Right.
But I think I picked this up a lot working in trying to figure out how to do this for universities in the university system. But I think just in general, I'm a very curious person and I find this stuff very interesting. I think you're really, I think people's jobs are really interesting. I get a chance to like looky-loo into your world, but I don't have to live there. And so it really, the topics and the needs are so varied that it's so interesting to me at all times. And if it was the same thing, I wouldn't be interested at all.
Right.
Yeah.
That much I also know about you, that, you're always got your eye around the corner for the kind of emerging areas. One of those emerging areas that we began talking about a couple of years ago was AI.
Which you've been critical to actually helping us move forward on that.
And so I'd like to ask you to reflect on both what you're hearing from your presidents and from the communities that you engage in your communities of practice around where we are in the AI journey. Initially, I have no doubt, and in fact, you've documented things that, in fact, university presidents and chancellors and boards need to know about AI. Is that still where the most important set of energy and effort needs to be engaged, or is that conversation and that dialogue starting to move?
No, so we have 2 new communities of practice that we're trying to launch like literally in real time. One is around Centers for the Future, and the other is on AI, which is basically in any, I play in a lot of areas I have no business being in, right? Student success, I'm not an expert. Like now I might be because I've been at this for 12 years, but like, I'm just find this stuff interesting and I want to help universities get out of their own way and like help them, they're not alone. They don't have to invent the wheel. Dear God, please don't invent the wheel. Right. So in that space, I'm trying to understand how is your campus and your campus and how are you thinking about AI? Who did you pick? Do you have a person that you pick? Right. Who's the AI person? What are the questions you're asking? How are you tackling them? And so it became very clear that everyone's trying to make this up while we're we're building the plane while we fly it. You guys are way out front because of some early decisions that you made. And I wanted to make sure that others understand, like, hey, when ASU launched a competition to unleash the creativity of the institution around AI, it was a small leadership move, but it's a power move. Now everyone feels like they are a co-creator. So share that with the other campuses. They love it. You've already built some solutions that actually they want to use. Now I think we have 7 or 9 want to use the triangulator. Right. And so a lot of what I need to do, I try and keep the relationships moving, make sure we're like everything's solid, but adapt in real time. And what I've seen is in the AI space is that there is no national space. Like K-12 is so far ahead of us when it comes to literacy and safety standards because of the work of Innovate EDU and the EdSafe Alliance, which is kind of a highly flexible national ecosystem space they run that you could be in the room to help inform, but you could also leave there and that someone's actually stewarding and shepherding these complex issues and making so that we are actually coming to coalesce around clear standards. So when we saw that, it's very clear there's a wide open space. We want to launch the Higher Ed Safe Alliance, working directly with Innovate EDU.
With Erin and her.
We put in a FIPSI proposal.
Right.
It's very clear. We have the full plan.
Right.
Part of what I'm doing here is trying to raise money for these things because the way we operate is I raise money, the campuses match.
Right.
So I need to get them out of the starting blocks. Because it's never what you can pay campuses to do, it's what they're going to put their own money into.
Right.
That's a part of sustaining when you asked about that. And the other is just always knowing, like seeing the new problem that emerges around change and how to keep things moving. And so constantly adapting, I would say cross-functional teams, all of that.
So Bridget, one of the things I took from the white paper that you shared on essentially what presidents need to know is an insight that I'd like you to reflect on. I read that framework, which I encourage people to look and see.
Oh, the vendor, which you co-created, like that was a draft that you made actually good.
But one of the, as it were, in some ways we buried the headline. And the headline, I think for leaders was, the sooner we get to AI not being about IT, but AI being about leadership and governance, the sooner we can actually look to see it actually having impact.
Oh, totally.
Is that?
Yeah.
I think that's fundamentally your insight. And is that resonating?
Yeah.
Or is it still, oh my God, I have to understand actually what all the acronyms mean? And
so how this happened is in the process of this figuring out what needs to exist in the higher ed landscape, I just started paying attention to what the same questions were being asked by multiple campuses. And it was, how do you analyze these vendor decisions? And how do you sign an enterprise agreement? How do you even make that decision? You guys were the first mover. So great. What kind of things did you ask? I find that it is, the mistake people could make is treating this like a technology, because it's not. because they would think, oh, it's just Lev's lane. No, it literally is like, how are we going to think about it? How are we going to, what is going to be our kind of theory of change about it? What is our like epistemology of how we're going to approach it? They need to really, you got to figure out like each person, what is going to be my point of view and how do I need to show up as a leader with this? And we've very quickly accumulated a list of questions and prompts to support campuses because, and then you helped and Aaron, and it basically, we created this a vendor diagnostic guide that in our mind, what we create is not about us. It is a gift to the field so that an under-resourced regional public who will never meet has to be able to use everything that we do. So our work is innovation, scale, and diffusion. And so this is a case of, I just want open source, share it, add to it, whatever. 150 universities have downloaded already. I'm now being asked for a trustee guide to help trustees not ask the wrong question, stay at the right altitude, and actually help with their institutions.
All right, I got one last question for you, Bridget. I'd like to get your read on sort of the pulse of where we're at in the AI hype cycle. We've been talking about it for the better part of 3 years now. Do you think that we're out of the starting gates, that we're approaching the top of the hype cycle? Do you think maybe we're already beginning to see impact? That is to say, we've come through a bit of the trough of disillusionment and we're on our way to impact? Or would you frame rather than as a hype cycle, would you use a different kind of analogy to give us a sense of where you and where the UIA community basically feel we're at?
So I think that there, just like in any other cycle, there's the first movers, and then there's some of the laggards. I think generally there's a lot of BS out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of institutions and individuals who are, I mean, most of us are making up our knowledge about AI. It didn't exist a few years ago, right? And so there's not like, I'm not sitting here as a PhD in AI, right? And yet, the loud voices and the first posters are putting that out as if they know what the hell they're talking about. People do not actually know what the hell they're talking about.
And it's really early.
It's really early. And there are some who made smart strategic moves where they actually invited the creativity of people like you did. And you've actually already built tools that are in real time solving problems. And so now we're getting to a point where there's early scale, potential, and reality. I think that we've seen clearly there's a philosophy that should be replicated, which is, yes, have clear guardrails, but invite others to help. This should not be a decision made at the president's level. It's not don't keep it up on this tower. Enroll the community in figuring out how we can use this to unleash their potential, unleash the creativity and the solutions that we can create. So I feel like the efficiency play is early and it's table stakes. I think that there are massive questions that we actually need to work on around literacy and safety, and we are giving away the farm when it comes to student data privacy issues.
That's another central point you make in that piece. Data is your currency.
And we are signing contracts that we will rue the day. Like this is not a moment, and yet there's also the hype cycle. First mover advantage. People want to look like they're behind. So I generally think that we're all kind of in the same space. Emperor has no clothes. It's okay to admit that you don't want to look behind. I get it. You also don't want to make bad decisions. I get it. Risk. But also, you shouldn't be doing this in a silo. We got to find ways to create the kind of spaces for the conversations that will set this sector up, that we will not regret the choices we made today, because we are playing with fire when it comes to student data, intellectual property. There are big questions I can't even conceptualize, and there is no way that I have the best ideas myself. We just need to make it so that I'm talking to smart people regularly and we're actually making the whole sector better, because, I'm always aspiring to the way I want my presidents to operate is that they care as much about each other's students as their own. And it's a radical idea, but if we did that, how would we operate right now? We would actually team up, solve this, and try and actually make sure that we're going to be taking care of students in the future by decisions today.
Bridget Burns, thanks so much for joining us.